Hello. Welcome to Romantic Developer Late Night Stream. It's Late Night Talks. I'm Romantic Developer. It's my circuit board t-shirt, and we have 211 stream from our series. The series started 211 days ago, and it was all about it's Late Night Talks. Okay, it's good. So it was all about a challenge to do stream every day. Oh, sorry. Looks like I clicked something and it started my intra clip once again. I tried to start my chatbot and actually it's already started. You can see it in the chat message. And also I start my real-time transcription on which executed locally on my computer and preserve file locally. Of course, it's free, but it's taking some of my resources locally, and maybe we need to think about making it as option, not local, but remote. And for executing it from browser, of course, we need to consider remote option only. So we should send our voice over the internet and it would be translated. I mean, it would be transcribed immediately, and chatbot, which also wouldn't be executed on my local machine, but on some remote machine, could get the access to that transcription and do the things. So on my streams, we normally talk about some news, some situations, some events, answering some comments, talking about top of mind reflections. And as well, I'm slowly doing some code exercise. Again, I'm doing the tools to help me to do those streams. And right now it's a pretty impressive tool set, which available for free, which maybe require a few small reads to be able to understand what it is and all that functionalities it's provided. But for those of you who just want to start using it with very simple intuitive interface with a live assistant bot which will talk to you and do everything you need, and you could receive results very quickly, I'm building a web-based tool right now during those streams. And yeah, I've just sent a link into there. Oh, I need to switch my computer sound from headphones to my speakers. Otherwise, I could miss your comments. If you send some comments into the live chat, my computer should announce them, especially if it decided, not my computer, live chat bot, which executed on my local computer. It can announce them and say, hey, and doing some text to speech if it decided that streamer should know about it. The same, it could respond to your comment if it decided that it should respond. So it's like doing some logic, and it's all configured with some predefined prompts. We can pre-configure them, and we can ask it to act differently while it's working. But yeah, it's how it's behave right now. And of course, because it's executing completely independently of us, and it's not asking us about any actions, it's do it on its own, replying, using tools, using search through news, and getting some news content as well, searching some my latest streams, my current stream, my last stream, and so on. So of course it's a classical example of agentic flow, or basically AI agent, but which in form of live chatbot. It don't do a lot which I still want it to do, like it don't moderate messages, but it's pre-moderate them before it's announce them to me. So if it sees that some messages should be moderated before it can speak them loud on my stream, it will do it. Use moderation engine from OpenAI. Yeah, moderation. I'm not sure, but yeah, something like that. So of course, as I said, yeah, probably I need move myself somewhere. Come on. Okay. I'm doing those streams a lot, but I'm still not very professional with those OBS Studio. Probably I could create just multiple scenes and switch between them much more easily than modify the scene and then transition to the modified scene. So it's a tool which I shared in the chat. It's a local Utip AI helper Python tool. And basically, it's what I use when I start the chat and when I end the chat. The basic tool flow initially was Python main py, and we don't need to use it if we use some default folder. We just call full process, and we just provide a link or YouTube ID or YouTube link in any of format you can see at YouTube, including link to live stream. Update YouTube you can add. Then if it's your video on your channel, it will ask you to authenticate if you haven't authenticated yet. And once you authenticate locally to your channel, it can go, and for each video here, while it's processed, it can go and update description, title, transcript, keywords based on some predefined prompts. And of course, there are a lot of documentation here, how we can modify it, how we can use local LLM, not only some paid LLM or not paid LLM, you know. And also it has a code. Code. Let's go code. And of course, in the Python implementation, we could see all this code. And for example, if we think about some configuration, I included some configuration like generic configuration, and prompts are here. I'm sharing it.
Why did you keep your name Romantic Developer? Is it for Valentine's Day?
No, it's not for Valentine's Day. It's, if you could see the history of my streams, it's how it started. It's how my wife called me, because he knows several developers, but he insisted that I'm a most romantic of all developers she knows. So because I see beauty in multiple things that other people just can skip. And yeah, of course, it's also in some actions and in my beliefs and so on. So I think, okay, why not? Why wouldn't be me romantic developer, especially that name not taken on YouTube, so I'm not mimicking someone well-known character. So that's why I choose that name for myself. Of course, on my work, people call me differently by my name. So, and here, okay, maybe role. Okay, it's very simple prompt. I'm sorry. I mean, prompts for example, for description will look like that. So it have requirements how to build a nice YouTube description from our transcript, and which N can get while it's getting YouTube video from YouTube, downloading it locally and sending it to Whisper to transcribe it. And with that transcript, it can create a beautiful description for that video. But also I use it better chapters, for example, here, because I'm sorry, it's still in generic prompts, because it's not discussion starters, better chapters. So it's replace it automatically after it processes all the prompts when it sees some variable like better chapters. But now we just create nice YouTube chapters. And of course, it's not the most sophisticated way I've seen to that moment to create the chapters, but it provides pretty cool results. You could see it in my previous streams. I use those prompts without any change for my streams as well. So normally I'd start with some simple prompt to see what are the latest news, because I'm not every day just discovering the news, but I don't want to miss anything important, because somehow it's becomes that we work closely with we start looking into all that LLM stuff. Let's say artificial intelligence side, which of course not intelligence yet, but it's very dependent of what we call intelligence. Of course, all that LLM, large language models, they build on some principles which we took from around world, from physics world. So we model somehow, let's call neurons, the way how our signals are passing through our mind, yeah, or from our like different body parts to our mind, and how we take decisions, and we emulate that, let's say neurons, how we know them, maybe 50, maybe 40 years ago. So it was that basis for large language models created a very long time ago. That time it's called maybe not neurons, but maybe some automats or graphs, etc. So it's called all different ways back in before 2000s. But now it evolved, and we now talking about LLMs, training LLMs, etc., and it's just all those weights basically on in each this graph or automats, and it's all become multiplying of matrix, etc. Then we added context, we added focus, we added embeddings, and of course it's went where we are at the moment with very cool development in very old technology of neural networks, and still it's a lot of space to do some pretty simple discoveries like DeepSeek did recently with very few let's say algorithms improvements in the studying, and it's created some boom. But of course, I believe we still will see something like other people refer as AGI very time soon, because it's very logical, and I think we have a good computer power right now to achieve that. But of course, after that, we will receive next and next level of AGIs and so on. Oh, I just saw that my bot also replied to previous comment. Playful title, it says. Yes, it's not specifically for Valentine days, but rather fun way to combine coding with romantic. My chatbot doesn't know everything about me. Sorry for that. But it's tried best, But again, it's just GPT-4 Mini. It's running on GPT-4 Mini to do that. As we could see, it's all on my computer right now with some good amount of login. So you can see that it's receiving some messages. It's trying to understand. So yeah, from here, no, it's post message where it's received the message. Okay, here it says, is it okay? It's my message, and the next message is that is the message for streamer response. Yes. Why did you keep? So it says the message, and it says that it should do its chat like text to speech. Then it's sent to speech. Then it's trying to understand if it should provide an answer to that message or not. Chatbot itself, it's returned okay, which means that it need to provide answer, and then it's trying to generate answers with completion and all our system messages for that bot and all the context, etc. we gather for it. and it's created a response, and it sent a response as a message, and it was pretty short, so it's fit into one message. It could break responses up to 5 messages right now per our configurations. So yeah, it's all here, all the logic. And we ask some of the latest available, yeah, we don't have anything more new, model to say us some latest news. Please search for exciting and recent AI news, or maybe news in AI and LLM area. Let's say that. I think we can consider as recent any news published after, so now 210, so publish it on or after, let's say February 9, 2025. Please summarize the news and provide a link. Select top, I don't know, let's say it's 7. We used a reasoning model with search, but without deep research, so it should provide us answer probably in 5-10 seconds. Hopefully. But you see, it's go very long path. So probably it will take up to a minute or so. By the way, it's already found most of the articles. You see, we see through what it's shared about its reasoning process, because there are basically titles for the news, and it's just trying to see what would be interesting, what would be exciting news, and it's waiting to finish that reasoning to provide us final response. So it's built like top 5 news. We ask top 7. Now it still keeps the same list, I believe. I gathered favorite news items published on or before or after February 9. So, and here is the response. It says thought for a second, which is not true, of course. It thought for a minute or more, but let's see. Below our top 5 rather than 7, because only 5 items meeting a strict on or after February 9. Exciting. Okay, so it's on or after strict criteria or exciting criteria. I think it's more like combination, because I believe about that AI and LLM we have like 1,000 in use every day. So ML Commons released AI Illuminate LLM version 1.1 is in partnership with AI Verify Foundation announced version of 1.1 of its AI Illuminate benchmark. This update adds French language capabilities to its AI safety testing toolkit, helping companies compare and manage LLM risk in global market. So I believe it's not about releasing another new exciting LLM. It's more about test benchmarks, correct? So I'm not very well aware about benchmarks, but it's world leader in AI benchmarking. So it's supported by over 125 members and affiliate, proven record of bringing together academic, industry, civil society to measure and improve AI. So, okay, they have another version of benchmark test. Inside Monday AI pivots, building digital workforce through modular AI. VentureBeat, this article details how companies are rethinking their operations by integrating modular AI system to construct agile digital workforces. So all talking about workforces, I still think that it would be just improving what are people doing by providing them more like co-pilots, which can do a lot, rather than completely replacing the people and providing all the tasks to AI agents, and they'll do all the coding. Anyway, even if it happen, probably it happen, they need some people just to review all the stuff, because AI could take task very straightforwardly without, I mean, I understand. So you can build a very beautiful system. You have a product, you have a lot of tests which cover not only functionality but also security and multiple aspects of security. But let's imagine you need to add some new feature and you ask bot to add that new feature. It's possible, it can do, and it can execute all the existing tests. Okay, then you ask, please cover it with test, which probably it will cover by test, but without deep understanding which parts to cover. Probably the test even will go through all the code. So test coverage could be good, but it's very hard to find a proper example of what I mean. So if you're talking about very simple flows, of course AI could replicate it. If we're talking about things where we need real human input and understanding, probably we still need humans. But yeah, the thing is that we need less humans, of course, less humans. And it's, AI, I mean, software development is just a start. It hit every area very soon. Who's using AI the most? Anthropic Economic Index break down the data. Also, the Chatbot analyze industry adoption by AI, introducing Anthropic Economic Index. It's quantify which sectors and companies are leveraging LLMs most intensively. Interesting, but can we open that article? Oh, really? It's provide me a link without a link. I couldn't click on it. Okay, we can of course ask which sectors, but of course it would be, of course, software companies and then all others. Of course, finance probably use it a lot, and all the design development companies as well. AI enhancing quantum large language model launched. AI Business reported the launch of new quantum enhanced LLM. This breakthrough model integrates quantum computing techniques with traditional LLM architectures, promising significant improvements in solving complex problems that conventional models struggle with. Really? And that is the same? I couldn't go to that link? Okay, that is the link. Oh, no citation ID available from the tool output, I see. That is the link. Business must escape hyper-scalar grip to embrace the intelligent age. Okay. Argues the companies need to break free from over dependence on major cloud. Hyperscale it advocates for adopting AI-driven in-house or independent solutions that can deliver smarter, more agile business operations in the emerging era of intelligence automations. So, I'm sorry. There are always good and bad in clouds. Of course, everyone know about good things in cloud, that it's available from everywhere. You're not storing something locally, and if all your local infrastructure fails, you are safe because it's in cloud. From other side, of course, for some robots or for some automated systems, it should be able to operate without cloud connection, of course. Maybe in like offline mode, but recent events, especially recent wars, show that all the communication could be easily halted between people, between system, between AI system and their clouds. It's just question of interference into the between them, where they on very physical level, let's say that. So all of us use some protocols to communicate. If you look at the phone, it uses some protocols, and they could be, I mean, someone could impact on that, and you can lose your cellular data. The same thing with internet. If it's cable could be broken. If it's Starlink, believe me, Starlink can be also. I can find a proper word. So it couldn't be damaged from the earth. Of course it could be, but yeah, but the signal could be compromised. So it's techniques as well used in the Ukraine-Russia war, when Russia managed to on some part of the front line can compromise Starlink network by, I don't know, by sending to Starlink some signals, etc., etc., and they just not overload them, but let's say that back signal is lost in that yeah, it's where my English is not so good. So, but yeah, it's very possible. So of course, and basically that's why more and more, for example, drones in that war become not only driven solely by operator, but also more and more AI driven solutions are used, also installed in drones. Of course, it adds to their price something, but good controller which can handle some AI recognition and solution making can cost about from 150 to 250 or more, of course, dollars. And if you think about a drone, the cheapest one will cost anyway more than 100. Adding like 200, of course, sounds big, especially if it's kamikaze drone, but at the same time you will not lose it. If you lose it, it still do something. It will choose the target itself, I'm sorry, and will blow something, or car or human being or whatever, hopefully on the other side of front line. So that technology is used elsewhere, and probably that is why Google recently decided not to apply that weapon ban to AI inventions under the Google company. So Google now don't strict usage of AI to only peaceful operation. It's in game of big weaponry companies now. Okay, let's see on that AI business report. And no thanks. So it's about quantum large model launched, and I believe that it AI business. By the way, not the website I used a lot. I probably saw it sometimes, but let's see what is a quantum language model. Is it open source? No, or just some in-house solution? Oh. Can I read it without subscribing? Let me try. Just fake that. Okay. I don't like when they don't provide me a choice. You need to subscribe to read. And thank you back. So IoT World today, and where is that article? Enter quantum, close model. Okay. DARPA to elite approaches to utility scale quantum large language model launched. Probably that is the news. So in-house system to simulate a quantum computer and support gradient-based learning, a key concept in training AI models. They use to develop quantum attention mechanism, which integrates quantum computing principle. Okay. You know, it could be whatever. It could be whatever. Unless in those days, unless someone shows at least some demo, it's nothing. Yes, DeepSeek did a great thing. They show the demos, they show the research paper, they put it on GitHub, and they put it under MIT license, so completely free to use in commercial everywhere, except maybe some distilled models which rely on some semi open source models, but still it was pretty cool. That one, it's just some news. Maybe I need to provide a better prompt next time, just to provide me news from real sources, including maybe X, including maybe, I don't know, something of level DeepSeek, OpenAI, and like that, not some no-name company saying, okay, we emulate quantum and we have great results. Maybe yes, but it's just words, And if it's words from OpenAI, you believe it. If it's words from no-name company, maybe it's not no-name. I'm not sure. You're like, okay, maybe. So, and we are here. Okay, it's my code from before where I tried to improve some of my previous models. Maybe I can even commit it. I did it after stream yesterday because I tried to apply some reasoning models for my custom other videos I use for my stream, not reasoning models. I'm used for my stream like ChatGPT for OR, and that's why I don't have any issues. But I decided to use O1 and O3 models for some other channel because I can create multiple configuration for multiple use cases, and it's very simple to do. And while I do that, I discovered that I use that model actually in Azure. I use O1 in Azure, and because once I use it in Azure, so right now I'm relying on the model name. In Azure, it's more complex, it's deployment name, but I think, okay, you should have deployment name which starts with O1 or O3, then it will apply that logic. So the O1 and O3 doesn't support system messages. And if I'm not mistaken, even developer messages, it should be all user messages in message types. Also, they don't support, of course, max tokens. They don't support response format. Maybe the O3 supports, but not O1. And they support max completion tokens, and so on. So instead of writing a lot of code just to support O1, I just added more or less universal code except that line. So I'm discover that if model is reasoning based by Z, O1 or O3, and with DeepSeek, it's fine because at least when I execute it through LM Studio, it doesn't have problems with some system prompt, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe I'm mistaken, but yeah. Else, I probably just add another configuration that is reasoning model or something. But we need to also see different reasoning models supports different things, and yeah, it's all could be tricky. but was a good exercise before we build that on the larger scale when we can support any possible models. Of course, probably we should support some OpenAI interface, I believe. So support O1 and O3 in OpenAI models in OpenAI SDK or Azure OpenAI SDK. So that would be it. It would be a change which we want to commit and push. And that is for my current project. And now I just want to reopen my recent project, which is larger video helper. And here we need to rework that, but we come up to the problem that we need to find how we can execute extensions modified. Okay, let's reload. So the thing is that we need to understand how execute long-term task here, which we can emulate locally and emulate in Azure, or not emulate. And probably we try to execute them as generic as possible. I haven't tried that before. I mean, support both executions local and remote. Actually, I did, but it was a long time ago and with completely different technology stack. But now we are looking at Python code, and it's FastAPI, and I don't know how to do it here. I'm thinking about using Azure functions always, but let's see what ChatGPT proposes. For now, we just say Python and gather files, which basically right now it's combine all our output here, and we can go and start new session, and it would be interesting. We can maybe try a few models. We can try O3 Mini, or also we can try some new chat, maybe with O1 Pro mode. And we probably don't need deep research anyway, correct? Yeah, it's not something where deep research could help. Okay. I have a code which I will share. I'm going to add multiple functionalities. Which can take time to execute. For example, downloading a file from YouTube or from different source, converting video file to audio file, transcribing the file, or processing the prompt. I am looking to some best approach here. My solution will be deployed into Azure infrastructure, but at the same time I want to have ability to test it locally. Ideally, it shouldn't be a very complex task to switch some approach for those long-running tasks. What is your recommendation based on my content and my description? Please provide several options and explain all the pros and cons. So we don't ask it to provide like single answer, but provide as much as it can to provide us with information so we can choose. So let's send it to O3 mini high. It's still not huge code, so we can share a lot of our code base. Okay, and we asking from O3 mini high, and we asking from O1 Pro. And from O3 mini high, we also ask the search capabilities. Okay, it's already provided me about 6 options, as I see. FastAPI's background task is simple but limited for heavy task. Okay, so it's already provided me response. There are several strategies. This not only keeps your API responsive, but also makes your solution easier to scale and maintain. Given that your application is already contained using Docker and Docker Compose for local testing and Azure pipeline for deployment, you have some flexibility. So approaches. FastAPI, a simple mechanism via its background task. With this method, you can add functions to be executed after sending the HTTP response. For example, we can do send notification and background tasks. Where is background task? Okay, here background task. Add task, send notification, email, return task started in the background. Simplicity. Yeah, it's very simple. Easy local testing. Nicely working. Cons, limited to short task. It's best suited for quick task. Sending an email, simple login. For heavy task that may run for minutes, like, yeah, we can download something for minutes. It risks timeout or blocking the worker. Oh, I don't like it. No built-in retry monitoring. Yeah, it's not good. You won't have robust error handling, retry mechanism, or way to monitor task progress. You know, it's also all possible to implement. We can update our DB once we implemented the task. So, and if DB is not updated, probably we can just recheck it and say, hey, rerun all the tasks which don't have any results in the last, I don't know, 1 hour, and which are pending, just execute them once again. But yeah, single process execution is also not good. This task run in the same process or in a limited thread pool, so they can compete for resource with your web server. Using task queue like Celery. Celery is a mature, battle-tested, distributed task queue that work well with FastAPI. For an example, CTS Drive, IO, for example, integration. In this approach, you offload heavy long-running tasks to separate worker process that communicate with your web app via a message broker. How it works. When API endpoint is called, you queue a task, a dedicated Celery worker running on its own container, pick up the task and processes it asynchronously. You can add, I'm sorry. You can add, I'm sorry, I need to drink some water. So, of course, because we have queue, we can do retries, check tracking, etc. Scheduling robust and scalable, advanced features, and you can add and a broker like Redis as additional services in your Docker Compose file, ensuring consistency between local and production environments. Added complexity, of course, require additional configuration and infrastructure, broken networker containers, learning curve, slightly more overhead in terms of code changes, doing tasks, checking their status, etc., deployment consideration. Azure deployment can run and scale the additional containers or services. Offloading tasks to Azure functions, which actually I thought of, which actually I did something similar before, not with that exact project. Another option is to leverage serverless compute with Azure function. In this design, your FastAPI would trigger an Azure function using an HTTP call or by writing to a queue that the function listens to that performs the heavy lifting. Pros, scalability. Okay, yes, they scale very easily. You pay only for the compute time you use. Keep heavy processing off your web application. Local testing complexity. Yes, testing Azure functions locally require additional tooling like the Azure Function Core tools and may add extra steps, but still possible, I believe, yes? Code changes. You might need to refactor your long-running task to run as a functions, which can be more than a simple switch. Cold start. Serverless functions can sometimes suffer from cold start delays if they are not frequently involved. Yeah, it's also what I saw. Microservices hybrid approach. You can design your architecture as a set of microservices where the web API is solely responsible for handling HTTP requests and responses, while a separate service or set of services is dedicated to processing long-running tasks. This service could use Celery or even a custom solution and be deployed as a separate container. Isolation, of course. Independent scaling, of course. Flexibility. Celery, Azure function, etc. for each type of task. Increased complexity, of course. Overhead and operation overhead. Summary recommendation. Pros, cons. Recommendation. If your long-running tasks are expected to take significant time or compute resource, using a task queue like Celery is likely the best choice. You can easily add a Celery worker and a broker to your existing Docker Compose setup, allowing you to test locally with minimal changes. In production on Azure, you can deploy those as additional containers or use managed services while keeping your main FastAPI app responsive. If you prefer a serverless approach and you are comfortable with a bit more refactoring and additional tooling for local testing, Azure functions can be a good option. Alternatively, a hybrid microservices approach can give you the best of both worlds, though it comes with added operational complexity. Okay, so it's provided me two additional options, except those I consider like Azure functions, and I consider FastAPI background tasks before. And starting with background task can be simple, but of course implementing them as Azure functions could be much more reliable because you can combine Azure functions with queues, like here, RabbitMQ. And I have slightly more experience with Azure functions, but again, they can have like cold start, probably Celery wouldn't have. But also that functions you can call sometimes them, so they like wake up, and sometimes you can schedule something to call them up, so they waking up. Okay, let's see from O1 Pro. Multiple people say that O3 much better than O1. Yes, but we are right now talking about O3 Mini and O1. Is it O3 Mini even with internet access is better than O1? Let's see. Keep everything synchronous. Not recommended if tasks are truly long running. How it works? You write your FastAPI endpoints as normal HTTP calls. When user triggers a long running operation like download video, transcribe it, the server blocks until the job is done, returns the result at the end. Really? Really? Simplicity, easiest to implement, of course. Just call the functions directly in your endpoint handler. And yes, we already did it. We tried to download something in the function itself. Any large video multi-step pipeline can exceed typical timeouts like 30-60 seconds, of course. Poor scalability, of course. not built on failover. Of course, but we can implement it. I mean, it's kind of simple. Only short task. Use background task framework with the same container. A pure async EO tasks. FastAPI has a background task utility to run tasks outside the immediate request response cycle. Alternatively, you can manage your own asynchronous queue in memory using Python async EO tools. No extra services. Okay. You stay within Python. Okay. You just run Docker or local Python with uvicorn. Okay. Cons. If your container restarts, you lose all in-memory tasks, which probably acceptable. No distributed scale. So yes, still a single process. Okay, yes, I don't like single process, but maybe it's fine. Worker and queue. The web service. A queue service like Redis or RabbitMQ runs in Azure or locally with Docker. A worker container listens to the queue. When the FastAPI app receives a request for long-running job, it adds a message to the queue. The worker processes the job asynchronously. You provide an endpoint to check job status, or you push updates via WebSockets pooling. Scalable, of course. Durable, of course. Clean separation, of course. Common pattern, of course. Cons, additional moving parts. Slightly more complex. Okay, verdict. The most typical production quality approach for long-running tasks. You can easily test it locally by spinning up a local Redis plus worker container with Docker Compose. Then in Azure, you can scale the worker containers as needed and use a managed Redis instance. Serverless approach. How it works? A float running steps to Azure functions. Logic apps. Okay. Your FastAPI app triggers an Azure functions via HTTP call or places a message on an Azure queue service bus. By the way, logic apps are really very simple. It's like, approach when you could edit a very complex flow with very graphical tools and yeah, like executing some LLM or writing the file or even iterate through some results, doing some queries to the database, writing to the database. So it has so many connectors, it has so many function type and task type. So yeah, sending emails, etc., etc. And it's so easy to change. You just change and you just click update, and that's it. After that, all that function will be executed the way you want. Maybe it should be considered, but again, in that case, it probably would be very hard to execute locally, and we need to have, like dev instances in Azure as well to use that logic app full functionality. Triggers Azure functions via HTTP call or places a message on the Azure queue service bus, and Azure functions pick up the message, does the heavy job, and stores the results somewhere. Your FastAPI app queries the results later. Okay, pay as you go. You only pay for the compute time used by function. Scalability. Yes, massive scalability. Reliability. Okay, cons. More cloud specific, ties to closer to Azure environment, might require separate functions, app, or writing code to fit a serverless pattern. Local dev overhead. You can run Azure Functions core tools locally, but it can be more friction than a local Celery or quick worker. Time limit. By default, consumption plan, Azure Functions have 10 minutes execution limit. So you can use a premium plan to extend that. This is a good approach if you deeply invested in Azure and want truly serverless calling and cost model. If you want a simpler local plus Docker Compose approach, the traditional worker queue might be neither. And Azure Container Instances or Azure Batch. How it works, if you spin up ephemeral containers where Azure Containers instances, specifically for heavy tasks triggered by your main application. The logic can be your web container sends a request to Azure Batch or Container Instance API, which spin up a container with all the required environments, runs the job, and terminates. Scalable, pay-per-job, isolation, high complexity. So shortest row goes them synchronously, not good. Intermediate, FastAPI and background task. Maybe. Best all round, a separate worker process. Okay. Practical tips for option 3. If you choose add a Redis service to your Docker Compose ML, so we have web, we have DB, or Redis, and worker. Depends on DB Redis, worker Redis. Web is your FastAPI container, worker is your Celery work container, Redis is queue broker. Make sure requirements.txt includes Celery or queue. In app worker py or similar, use that, broker backend, long running task, video URL, done. In your FastAPI endpoints, app main, process video, and long running task is from worker long running task, delay, video URL, task ID, and get status, Celery app, async result, task ID, task result status. Okay, else none, and it return a long running task, and it's return done. At least to container, web and worker. You can run a managed Redis in Azure or self-hosted Redis in its own container in the same environment. The pipeline you set up to push the web image can also push a worker image if they share the same code base, or you can have separate Docker files if needed. This pattern is flexible and can be tested locally with Docker Compose, or even on your machine with Celery, app worker log level info if you install Redis locally. Final thoughts. So they both recommended me Celery RQ with Docker based containers. So which probably is good, So let's say, can you provide required changes to get started with Celery worker and broker? Which files should I change? Docker build. How I need to change Azure deployment pipeline. Can I execute worker locally to test better and debug? And some example like downloading, please fully implement some example like downloading video from YouTube. So let's ask that. And of course, we already have a lot of those code, but we can ask the same question from Pro model. And we ask the same version from H3 O3 mini, I'm sorry, high. I mean O3 high mini. So it's already identified all the things required. It's also trying to do in everything it's already said, but probably just describing in more details. So let's see, project structure changes. A project is structured as follow, file requirement. So we have app, we need our libraries like Redis and Celery. Now let's go and say pip install Redis. So with that, we receive the latest version for Redis, and we can go to requirements and add that Redis and version 521 454. Yeah, we have better results and Celery. Let's try pip install Celery. And for Celery, we have 540. Oh. And for 540, 527. Yeah, we have everything more recent, more latest. Implementing Celery. Celery worker. So let's add new file Celery worker. Let's copy that, insert it. So we have Celery, import Celery. Okay, app worker Redis URL and backend Redis URL. Okay, Redis configuration task, routes, task, video download, queue downloads. Route task to specific queues. Here we use one of the downloads. Okay. Task by. Let's see. Probably, of course, better to use some different folder because we can have multiple tasks. Tasks by. And it's YouTube deal. YouTube. What we are using here to download in our core logic downloader, we use that file. Yeah, so let's use the same file. And for download, so we said return info get title unknown title. So this, and we store it somewhere. Downloaded false, download options, audio pass, video folder, file details, video folder, pass, output dir, sanitize title, output dir, all self output dir. Okay, let's not validate any video URL. We have that URL here. We don't have logger here. And we don't have logger here. And we don't have sanitize title, it will be just title. And we need import OS. So title, video ID, we don't need video ID as of now. And return the title here. Okay. Celery app task download video. Okay. Modifying FastAPI application. FastAPI trigger download video delay URL. We probably have it somewhere here in our routers, input files. And if its input file equals to YouTube, and we can return task ID, download video delay. From task, download video. From tasks, download video. And in Dockerfile, we the same Dockerfile is used before, Docker compose. Now we have environment Redis and depends on Redis. Dockerfile It's our DB, it's our web environments. Oh, really? Nice. I was switched to my phone. Interesting. Can I write like that? Okay. Redis DB condition. Okay. And we have worker and Redis now. We have worker and Redis. By the way, it show me run service, which is cool. And Azure deployment pipeline change. If you for your Amazon pipelines, you might adjust the build and deployment steps to use multi-container compose file. For example, modify the deploy stage to pass Docker compose file. Multi-configuration Docker compose prod. Running without Docker. Okay. Example usage, downloading a YouTube video. It has that post and so on. So we still need to look into the Azure deployment pipeline, of course. Let's see that result. Requirements: Redis, Celery, Utip DLP. Create a Celery configuration plus task. Redis port, Redis host, Redis DP, broker URL, backend URL. So let's see how broker, how it's called, worker pie. We have Celery worker. Okay. And then my app worker, background, backend. Basically the same thing, but it has much better clarity on the things. So if we replace it, broker and backend URL would be like that. Worker. Download YouTube. So we have app and we have uploads. Download YouTube. So it didn't define new Celery app task. It didn't define it here. It just added here. I like that approach better. And in tasks, it has YouTube DLP, import Celery worker, Celery app, and what it's done. Pass lib import pass. I like that thing. And output dir, I will say pass, and it would be uploads. Yes, of course it's exist. Output template, subprocess. Okay, just use subprocess. Hook. Start download. It will say task result download. It will delay status state started and get task status. It's something we need to do. Let's compare our services. So Redis, new image, Redis latest, local Redis ports. Let's see, Docker compose, and it's here, Redis. Redis latest, local container name Redis, port 6379. Web depends on. So DB condition, Redis condition. So it says environment and for Redis we just say the same type as Redis host okay, Redis host is fine. DB and it's a condition and it will be Redis condition service healthy service Redis service started. Okay, health check. And worker build container name Celery worker environment Redis host Redis depends on Redis where we define service healthy. I remember where somewhere we defined that command. Environment, okay, explanation, Dockerfile adjustments. Just ensure included here. Okay, testing locally, update your requirements and run Docker compose build, ensure new dependency installed in the image. Start all services locally with test. Then check the status, debug, Docker compose log F, 2 terminals windows, Azure pipeline changes. Option A, build 2 separate images in your pipeline. But since we are using the same Dockerfile, we can define 2 steps with different build arcs. Build 1 image like now and then use multi-container approach. It's something we probably need to see is a multi-container approach later. Minimal changes. Deploy, key points. Summary of the changes. Can a worker appear in real time manually? You can have already Redis installed locally. You can do Redis server, Celery A, something, upcorn, up, reload. Example workflow locally. Final advice. So I will add another file. We'll call it to review MD. And I add here all the changes proposed by my chat here, because most probably I can lose it chat till next usage. And that thing we probably I'll leave because it's just slightly less than I see in O1 Pro. On Pro better maintain my code style, which I already implemented, so it's clear, we can clearly see that. So O1 Pro still slightly better per my understanding after those two things with the chats, and I'll test that code tomorrow, or if I not test that code tomorrow but later today, which probably I'll not do because I have another task to implement, I'll let you know how it's work tomorrow. So right now we are ready to add 2 new containers to our multi-container setup. So we had only web app and DB. Now we will have also Redis, which basically is some queue mechanism, and worker, which will execute task from those queue. Let's try to build that, and let's try to deploy it. So build some simple task which will work locally and deploy it in our Azure environment with our automatic pipeline. And if it will work, it would be cool, and we can continue with that, implementing the same code patterns we implemented before locally, but implementing them with cloud-based program, and improving them, providing much more abilities to set up and everything. And then we will add some voice agent which can talk to you, and we need to add multiple tools, so it's know how to help you set up all of those and how to do changes, so you can just talk to a computer and not write anything in the code or anything even in the properties in the web UI. So it's what I want to create, so even very non-technical people can easily set up their flow for transcribing and describing their YouTube videos, YouTube streams, and so on. With do it pretty professionally and spend on it no time and very little money just to execute those LLMs, because anyway, even if it will be in cloud and we will use DeepSeek, we need to host all these models, we need to host all those files, all that power to execute it. So it will cost something, but really not much. It's cost less and less and less. It's what we see happening every day. Okay, guys, so I'm switching back to my main camera, and yeah, wish you good time, good day, good evening, whatever, everything good. And my usual wishes to never stop learning, to never stop finding some beauty in this life, because it's beautiful, a very complex and very simple at the same time mechanism around us. Nature created so complicated world, but it's so provide us so simple feelings and so complicated feelings of joy, of like you see in maybe in some kids and small kids, they really enjoy environment really well, and I hope and I wish you to also see what they see. Maybe not exactly the same things, but at least enjoy it the same way. Also, of course, prioritize your loved ones over um, all that other things like power, money, and everything else, because at the end everything will go, and only your love, your heart, and the amount of love you gather in your soul, it's what remaining with you if we go to like different world and we're not taking all our money and all our successful results in our career and everything. Of course, it doesn't mean you should stop doing your career and stop achieving your results, but just proper prioritization, because it's what I see is that people go and they have only work in their head, but their kids could be not so happy as others kids, which receive much more attention and warmth and love from their parents and so on. Of course, it's not about only kids. It's about everything. It's about your parents. It's about your loved ones, your partners, your wives, your girlfriends, your boyfriends, and so on, and so on. So much more. It's much more important, that feelings and that love. It's what probably any AGI will not feel very soon. You know, we could receive AGI maybe this year, but true love and feeling of love maybe it's will be achieved in many years or 1,000 years from now, if ever. So let's keep what make us unique, because you see our mind is not unique anymore, our memory is not unique anymore. LLMs can do it much better than we. Okay, I'm not going to stop anytime soon, so you can find me on the channel. Please drop your questions into below the stream in the comment section. You can use any stream you can find, and yeah, join me sometime in future. Hopefully our paths will cross again, and yeah,